Do You Know What Wrath Is? By K.O. Bynes. Scientist Ciliath entered the hall quietly, surprisingly calm for her situation. A newly appointed research delegate usually was nearly shaking their hair, feathers, or other applicable comparison off when they were doing their first presentation for the panel. Ciliath was still, calmly waiting for her turn, next to many other distressed delegates.
When you are a speciologist, as I am, you learn mostly about a species' culture. The body of something, how joints move, how energy is produced. It's simple. There are oddities, of course. Look at some of you in this hall. The many odd quirks of each species. They're interesting, obviously, or we wouldn't care to catalog them.
Ciliath said, taking the tablet and moving the projector screen through many different models of the species present, showing the many odd adaptations species have made as they evolved within and after leaving their cradle planet.
There's only so many ways a body can work, however, and only so many quirks a species can have. That is why we study how cultures work, what their history is. It tells the story of a species, why they might have differently shaped eyes, or turn certain colors based on emotion, or have hands for climbing and grabbing.
Ciliath said, once again changing the view, focusing on the more common, more utilitarian adaptations the assorted species have made.
Humans are very different in this area. We all think of them as simple species. They fit the biological mold perfectly. A reasonable number of limbs, high endurance, and complex brains that can create tools and the like. Perfect fits for whatever labor or products our great leaders here would use for them.
The last bit with a slight stutter that was noticed, but overall, everyone thought she was doing amazing. As her teacher rested in the academic seats, she was almost inspired by the young student.
The way they are different, however, is their emotions and social structure. What we so intelligently...
Ciliath stopped for a moment, regaining her composure as the other delegates were nodding sympathetically.
What we threw away as mere primal urges, like that to mate, or useless things, like losing motivation, or what they call sadness, they still have. Yet they still thrive with these things.
Ciliath said, bringing up a picture of the human brain, different areas highlighted, labeled with what they did and how.
Many of these emotions can actually be motivators, something they learned over time. Respected counsel. Do your translators have anything for the word wrath?
Ciliath asked, her eyes beginning to almost glow for a moment as she said it. All but one of the species representatives gave obvious signs that they knew nothing of it, one of them listening to their translator for a moment longer, one of the younger species, then shaking his head in disbelief and turning back to the presenter.
Wrath is a human emotion, one that took me a long time before I ever witnessed it. But when I did, it was so enlightening. A human feels wrath in many situations. Emotions are, of course, subjective, but there's one common criteria for it.
Ciliath said, looking down for a moment as she pulled up a video but didn't yet play it.
A human will usually feel wrath when they feel wronged, when they feel that something isn't just bad or exploitative towards them, but when something is abhorrent, when something is unforgivable to them.
Ciliath said, letting the video play. The video was of a rocky area, with caves and tunnels. The head of manufacturing immediately recognized it. The Hetrielvian mines. Due to the very electrically active material, modern technology was unusable. This, of course, caused it to be very dangerous work and needed individuals to do the brunt of the labor. Over a few minutes, scenes of workers being beaten, harassed, and at one point shot with small firearms. Not lethal, but most definitely not pleasant for those at the wrong end of it.
This video didn't use to faze me. It's simply normal. Labor for the greater good.
The last words this time was not mistaken as a stutter, but something else. Something deeper.
The humans, they're not just interesting for their use of emotions. They're interesting for another reason. Their ability to teach them.
Ciliath said, bringing up her arm from under the table, raising a weapon towards the guards. Before they could fire back, a slew of fire came from behind her as the doors opened and those other scientists, the many that accompanied her to Earth, came in. holding the brutish, blocky weapons of the humans. Methodical fire came from each of them, marching over the bodies of the guards towards the oh-so-great leaders. Seliath came upon the head of manufacturing, standing over his shaking form.
So, did we inherit it too? That ability to teach emotions?
Seliath asked, raising the weapon to his temple.
Do you know wrath?
The last thing the manufacturing head saw and heard was the muzzle flash and the bang of a gun. The same final moments of so many of those laborers he had condemned to death on Hetrielvin.